It's 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. You open Netflix with the vague intention of finding something new, something critically acclaimed, something everyone's talking about, and somehow, 30 seconds later, you're back on Season 3, Episode 4 of The Office, or Friends, or that one comfort show you've seen so many times you could recite the dialogue in your sleep. And part of you feels embarrassed, like you're wasting your limited free time on something you already know frame by frame. Like you should be expanding your horizons, trying something new, being more adventurous with your choices. But here's what's actually happening in your brain when you hit play on that same episode for the 10th time, and why it might be one of the most psychologically intelligent things you do all week. I'm not here to tell you to watch new things. I'm here to explain why you don't. Because this pattern, this gravitational pullback to the same familiar stories, isn't laziness. It isn't a lack of curiosity or ambition. It's a highly specific form of emotional regulation that most people don't realize they're performing. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what your nervous system is doing when it chooses predictability over novelty, and you'll probably stop judging yourself for it. There are 3 psychological profiles of rewatchers, and the last one explains something most people completely miss about how their brain processes safety. The certainty seeker. This is the person who rewatches because they're drowning in uncertainty everywhere else. Maybe your job is unstable. Maybe your relationship feels unpredictable. Maybe the news cycle alone is enough to make your nervous system feel like it's on a tightrope. When you rewatch a show you know by heart, you're not escaping reality. You're creating a controlled emotional environment where you already know the outcome. Your brain loves this. Because novelty, as much as we romanticize it, comes with cognitive cost. Every new show demands that you learn new characters, track new plot lines, absorb new emotional beats. That takes mental energy. And when your baseline stress is already high, your brain doesn't have that energy to spare. So instead, it chooses the known ending, the predictable arc, the joke you've heard before but still makes you smile. This is called cognitive load reduction, and it's not avoidance, it's strategic emotional maintenance. If this sounds like you, here's what's happening. Your nervous system is using familiarity as a stress buffer. The show becomes a placebo for control in a world that feels increasingly out of your hands. But there's a second type, and this one has nothing to do with stress. The depth scanner. You rewatch because you're not done processing. These are the people who notice new details on the 5th viewing that everyone else missed on the 1st. A background conversation, a visual callback, a line of dialogue that hits differently now that you know how the story ends. You're not watching the same show. You're watching a richer version of it every time. This is linked to something psychologists call psychological crystallization. Your brain is layering meaning. Each rewatch adds context, nuance, emotional texture. And here's the part that might surprise you. This is actually how deep thinkers consume everything. You don't skim. You don't move on before you've fully absorbed. You return again and again until the thing reveals itself completely. It's the same reason you reread certain books, re-listen to certain songs. You're not stuck. You're meticulous. Your brain is wired to extract maximum insight from minimum input. And in a culture that celebrates constant novelty, this makes you feel like you're doing it wrong. You're not. But there's a third type, and this is the one that explains why rewatching feels so emotionally safe. The nervous system regulator. This is the person who rewatches to physically calm down, not metaphorically, not symbolically, physically. When you watch something new, your brain is in a low-level state of vigilance. It's scanning for threats, for emotional danger, for plot twists that might trigger you. Your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for detecting threats, is quietly active, just in case. But when you watch something you already know, your amygdala gets the night off. Because your brain already knows. This episode doesn't end in betrayal. This character doesn't die. This conflict resolves in exactly 22 minutes. There are no surprises, no emotional ambushes. And for people with high sensitivity, anxiety, or a nervous system that's constantly scanning for danger, this is massive. Rewatching isn't passive. It's a neurological safety signal. Your brain is essentially saying, I can drop my guard here. I can let my cortisol levels come down. I can stop preparing for the worst. And here's the part most people don't talk about. If your real life feels emotionally unpredictable, your brain will crave predictability wherever it can find it, even if that's in a sitcom you've seen 12 times. This isn't avoidance. It's compensatory regulation. We'll come back to what this means for how you should actually think about your habits. But first, let's talk about why this pattern is so misunderstood, why society gets this wrong. We live in a culture that worships novelty, new shows, new experiences, new everything. And there's this unspoken belief that if you're not constantly consuming something fresh, you're stagnating, you're not growing, you're stuck in a loop. But that framework completely misunderstands how the brain works, because novelty and growth are not the same thing. Novelty activates dopamine, the neurotransmitter of anticipation and reward. It feels exciting, it feels like progress. But comfort activates something else, oxytocin, the neurochemical of safety, bonding, and trust. And here's the thing, you can't live in dopamine mode all the time. Your nervous system isn't built for it. Rewatching is your brain's way of toggling back to oxytocin, back to safety, back to a baseline where you can actually rest. So when people say you should try something new, they're not wrong. But they're also not accounting for the fact that your brain might not be in a state where it can process something new. Sometimes, the most intelligent thing you can do is give yourself permission to return to what already works. Here's what rewatching is actually doing for you. It's allowing your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and problem-solving, to take a break. Because when you watch something new, you're constantly making micro-predictions. You're guessing what happens next. You're emotionally preparing for outcomes. You're cognitively engaged in a way that requires energy. But when you already know the story, your brain can relax into it. You're not predicting, you're remembering. And memory requires far less energy than active processing. This is why rewatching feels so effortless. It's not because you're lazy, it's because your brain has offloaded the cognitive work. And for people who spend all day making decisions, solving problems, navigating uncertainty, this is restorative. You're not avoiding challenge, you're balancing it. What this means for you. If you're someone who rewatches the same shows, here's what I want you to understand. You're not stuck. You're regulating. You're not avoiding growth. You're creating the conditions that make growth possible. Because growth doesn't happen in a state of constant stimulation. It happens in the space between stimulation and rest. And if your real life is already overstimulating, if you're navigating change, uncertainty, or emotional complexity, then your brain needs somewhere it can stop navigating. That's what the comfort show is for. It's not a retreat, it's a reset. So the next time you find yourself clicking on that same episode, instead of judging yourself, try asking, what does my nervous system need right now? Because the answer might not be novelty. It might be the relief of already knowing how the story ends. Now I want to hear from you. Are you a certainty seeker, a depth scanner, or a nervous system regulator? Drop a comment and let me know, because I guarantee you're not the only one who operates this way. And if this video felt like someone finally explained a part of you that you thought was just a quirk, there's a lot more coming your way. I'll see you in the next one.